All right, can you hear me? Can you hear me, YouTube? That is the question. What is the answer? Hopefully the answer is yes. Hopefully the rambling is no longer silent. Thank you, Glenn, for confirming. And thank you, Internet, for putting up with almost 2 minutes of my silent rambling. But it would not be an edition of the Geeknd Live without a technical boo-boo, as they call it in the industry. But welcome to this special edition of the Geeknd Live, where we are going to do something a little bit different. This is a first, if you will, for the channel. I don't think we're breaking any kind of mold on YouTube or anything, but we will be live reviewing a niche live action semi-spectacle on a little up-and-coming streaming platform. I am, of course, talking about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney+. And I will be joined by two guests to discuss it, and hopefully by you as well in the live chats or in the video comments if you're watching on the replay, aka the future. Leave a comment, and I'm pretty good at replying to comments. There's not much I'll self-praise for myself, self-praise in life, but I'm pretty good at replying to comments. So if you are in the future, hey, you time traveler, leave a comment. And I can see a few of you in the chat already. Just to say, we'll be starting this review spoiler-free, but you will be notified when spoilers are coming, because I can see in the chat there's a few of you who haven't seen any of this series yet. Zach has only made it as far as the first 3 episodes, so you will be in a safe place for the next 15 minutes or so, and then we'll get deep, we'll get dirty with those spoilers with my guests. The 2 guests, Simon D, are not the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, unfortunately, although that can be an evaluation you can make yourself once you've met them. Vigo is not one of the guests, I'm afraid. Well, he's always one of the guests. In fact, he's not a guest. He's a permanent resident fixture of this studio. All right, then. So let's bring in the guest. But hello, we need Carl Sagan back. Hello, Glenn. Hello, Richard. Hello, Anton as well. I was about to say hello, Charlie, in the chat, but he's one of our guests, so we will be saying hello to him in person in a moment. Frogger, good to see you as well. Brad Snoke, all the way over there in Texas, is here. Welcome. And I think I've covered everybody for now. So let's bring in our guests. We have got Charlie Ashby from the Imperial Senate Podcast and Alden Diaz from Ahch-To Radio, a Star Wars podcast. Yeah, I've got 2 Star Wars podcasters in to talk about something that's not Star Wars. What could possibly go wrong? How are you both?
I was told I was talking to Wamaris Watt, and yet I've got you here. This is strange. It
is strange. I mean, Wamaris doesn't work on Mondays.
Oh.
If he did work on Mondays, because I work on Mondays, we could quite easily be in the same room at the same time. It's just a diary issue. But thank you for that, Alden, because I might just do a quick channel plug for the Geeknd. If you're new here, if you're not subscribed to the Geeknd, then, well, why the devil not, you psycho? Because we do lots of original content on Star Wars, lots of Star Wars, Marvel, and more in the form of interviews, trivia, documentaries, and even comedy. And Alden has reminded me to do a little plug now, because I'll no doubt forget later, that Lightspeed Tonight, episode 3, maybe the final ever episode, will be live tomorrow. Some of you on the Patreon have already received it. I hope you like it. And that will be dropping tomorrow. And the regular Geeknd Live will return on Thursday. Anyway, that's enough about me. Let's create an illusion that this isn't all about me, and then we'll get back to probably mostly me. Let's talk to our guests here on the Geeknd. We have Alden, as I mentioned, from Ahch-To Radio. Alden, how are you?
I'm doing well. In regards to life and everything, I'm half vaxxed and ready to go. We're just waiting for that second shot there. But in terms of entertainment, I'm sad because now Fridays are open for a little while. And I hate that. I love Fridays having a show.
Yeah, Fridays on Disney Plus. Fridays just aren't going to be the same again for a little while. But you haven't got long before Disney Plus will be keeping you occupied on other days of the week. I think you've got the Bad Batch and Loki, which we might talk about a little bit later on. But well done you for being half faxed. You're nearly there. I'm also half faxed. Hey, Charlie, are you faxed at all?
I'm not, because obviously I'm again. No, I'm joking. No, I'm waiting for my my little email or letter from the post from the government telling me that I'm allowed to go out and have fun. But until then, unfortunately, I'm sadly one of the few people staying indoors watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier on repeat. I will say though, Alden, your comment about Ramirez Watt, you have to remember that he's currently in 1999, so he's got no MCU movies to observe.
This is true.
Ramirez is still burned by Batman and Robin.
He would be wasted on this alleged entertainment. Right. I can see Chad is here. Chad, I know you haven't gotten all the way through The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You actually gave up. So as I mentioned before, if you've just joined us, we are starting spoiler-free, and then you will be notified in advance before we get dirty with those spoilers. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, I mean, like I said, we're going to start spoiler free. I'm going to just bring up an exciting poll that I conducted on this very channel. The question was, so what did you think to The Falcon and the Winter Soldier? I'm going to do we know all that because we're doing it right now. That's me plugging the stream. 151 people responded to this poll, 48% of which loved it. 26% thought it was okay. 3% didn't like it. 12% haven't seen it yet, but plan to. And I think we have got a few of those in the chat tonight. You're in a safe place for now. And 10% haven't seen it and don't plan to. Get off my feed, which, calm down, people, although they are words that I wrote. So they were left with little choice. So a fairly positive response from the people on the poll. And I have got a few comments as well from the Geeknd Discord and also YouTube, which I'll bring up a little bit later on. But first of all, Charlie, what would be your spoiler-free setup to introduce someone to this series?
Yeah, I guess what's interesting about any MCU property is that there's been so many movies, TV shows, like it's been going since 2008. So how do you introduce someone to this story who hasn't maybe seen Endgame, who hasn't maybe seen Iron Man up till now? And I think the way I would best summarize it and the best way to describe it is much like the comic books they're based on. This is volume 1 of a trade book of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So you can actually come into this story from episode 1. And yes, if you're an audience member who's seen all the other material, you will be rewarded for that and you will be able to pick up on certain things. But I do think it's as accessible for anyone to sort of jump in. All the details you need to know kind of get explained. And there is also a really great feature that Disney Plus have been doing for these shows called I think it's Legends, Marvel Legends, where they introduce the characters and show you the most important bits of details that you need to know before diving in. So I feel like that this show is really accessible to anyone, and that if you've watched the other stuff, you're just going to get rewarded in certain other ways. But I don't think it's necessarily barring you from enjoying the show.
Alden, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with so much of that, especially with the way that MCU culture has been built up. It feels like since Civil War, I would say there's been a kind of a mutual understanding that they were going to do a little bit less hand-holding, a little bit more long play stuff. Because if you're watching Civil War cold, that's kind of a hard experience, but at the same time, they have this knowledge in the back of their mind that they are also not unlike The Mandalorian. And even not unlike, I would say, Clone Wars Season 7, which you could also just jump into if you're a live-action Star Wars fan. They know that they are selling subscriptions here. And they know that there might be somebody scrolling through that's like, I kind of like a couple of those Marvel movies. let me check this out and see if the TV works for me. And so I think that it plays as a great introduction for Sam and Buck. You get exactly what you need of the Winter Soldier story, of his days as a Hydra op. But you also get Sam backstory that you never got in the movies. So it is sort of like, yeah, we've known this guy for multiple adventures, but this is the first time that we get to know this guy. So it really does serve very well for the two titular characters, as well as other people that we'll talk about.
Yeah, I had kind of unrelated. I had a haircut recently, as many of you noticed the last time I did a stream. Generally, haircuts with me are kind of like annual events anyway, you know, lockdowns or not. I quite enjoyed having the lockdown excuse when someone says you need to get your haircut. And it's like, dude, I can't. It's like against the law. So anyway, I was having my haircut, and the connection here is that the barber, the hairdresser, said to me, I can't remember what we were talking about, but it naturally led on to Star Wars. And he said, you know what? And he was like a good age to be a Star Wars fan. He was probably like mid-late 30s or something. And he said, I've never seen Star Wars. And you know, when you don't hear that too often, but you know, when you do, it shocks you to the core, doesn't it? You know, you have to sort of generally take a step back, thank them, and move on. Get the hell out of there. But the problem is, I was sat in a chair and he had weapons, essentially. So I had to stay and talk to him. But what I ended up deciding was that really, because he mentioned The Mandalorian. He said, I've heard about The Mandalorian. And I've heard it's really good. And I said, yes, it is really good. I can confirm. And I said to him, actually, do you know what? I don't think you need to see the Star Wars films. You could just watch The Mandalorian and get along quite well. So a bit like you said, you know, I think that's probably right, what you said. This is part of Disney's thought process, or at least the filmmakers, the producers' thought process to make these existing characters and properties as accessible for a broader audience as possible. Because as shocking as it is, there are people who haven't seen Star Wars films out there. And actually, Ant in the chat hasn't seen Endgame yet. The message isn't showing up for some reason, but he also hasn't seen Iron Man yet. But you would still say...
Oh no, we've lost Jamie. Oh.
What are we doing?
It's the Marvel snipers there.
He said too much.
We've taken control. He spoiled too much about the end game.
This is a Zemo plot. This is a Zemo plot in live action.
You guys taking over my channel?
Whoa.
What happened there? What happened?
It's Hydra.
You know what? I think the internet was disgusted with my barber for not seeing Star Wars. And you know what? I was trying. I don't know what the last thing you heard was. I was trying to say that Ant in the chat hasn't seen Endgame yet.
Yes.
I was trying to show his message, and that had the effect on StreamYard. And he also hasn't seen Iron Man. But you know, to reassure him, he's in a pretty safe place, isn't he, to just go on and watch Falcon Winter Soldier, isn't he?
For the most part,
yes.
Yeah. I definitely don't need any of the Tony Stark adventures here. I mean, he's only referenced once. You have an understanding that at this point he's spoilers for Endgame, not doing too well, no longer with us, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, the emotional stakes of what Sam's dealing with in Endgame, at least at the end, you know, for those last few minutes of the movie, I think they're all over the first episode, so you can sort of get an idea of where he is.
I mean, there's certain elements about Endgame which are pretty much spelled out by the characters, especially Sam. And I think, like what we're talking about just in general, not only is it a great way of Disney effectively getting new audiences in, but it's practically the Marvel effect. This is something that Stan Lee has been doing for so many years. He sort of set up the idea that every issue is somebody's first issue when they pick up a comic book. So you have to have something there to wow them. And I think they're just adapting that process, which has clearly worked because these characters are still going very strong, and just adapting that sort of technique for these different programs and films.
Another sort of off-topic tangent here. Charlie, how familiar are you with mint humbugs? That's from Chad Campbell in the chat. Chat Campbell.
Yeah, I've had one, I think, before.
They're not that. So Chad was in some sort of store in the States where it was like World Foods or World Sweets, and he asked me what a mint humbug is, and or how common are they in the UK. And I can only give my opinion, but I sort of remember like my grandparents had them. Like I feel like they're quite a traditional boiled sweet, mint
very
flavored,
much so.
believe it or not.
Very post-war, having some in your pocket somehow. I don't know how grandparents always have sweets in their pockets, but they sort of.
Is this something that like I was about to say that Tom Baker just handed out to people, or is this a kind of
it's a mint humbug?
I was like, are the mint humbugs a band? I was so confused for a moment.
They should have been.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any relation to bar humbug either. That's probably separate, but I know bar humbug more. I'm more in tune with bar humbugs. Yeah, I mean, this is Marvel's. Correct me if I'm wrong. The second original live action Disney Plus thing after WandaVision. Seeing WandaVision, and WandaVision, certainly for the first 3/4 of that season, for me at least, was something almost very not traditionally Marvel, from a previous cinematic experience. I loved how fresh and unique the take was on that story, and with those existing characters. Did that series change at all, alter your expectations for this season at all, for this series with Falcon and Winter Soldier?
I don't know if you want to go first, Charlie, if you have anything that jumps out.
Yeah, no, I think for me, the answer is honestly no, because I think what's so interesting about these films that we've seen previously is that they are all based on obviously the characters and the books that we have, and every single character book is based on those characters and have a certain, I guess, like tone to it. Sometimes it's genre based, sometimes it's just tone in general. So if you're picking up a Spider-Man book, you're guaranteed like it's emotional. It's to do with him being in New York, like connecting with the neighborhood, but also it's got jokes and stuff in it. Whereas if you're picking up a book about the Scarlet Witch, it's a bit more out there, a bit more magical. The same way, like a Captain America book would be different to say a Doctor Strange book.
Yeah,
but then
the
when
Hulk
you have
has the horror tones and
yes, the horror
Daredevil,
tones, and
crime, and
and then when you have the Avengers, they can all come together. That's what's sort of brilliant about the characterization, is that it doesn't matter about the different tones in their own projects, but they can all come together. And I think the same with the Disney Plus shows. We should expect a different tone and genre for each of them. Definitely WandaVision was very much a more quirkier show that managed to deal with sort of deeper themes. The same way that this show is a bit more like the Captain America movies, because it's still based on the Captain America comics. So it has the same sort of tone as those movies. So I feel like, if anything, I would go in expecting a similar tone to The Winter Soldier and Civil War.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think that what WandaVision, it didn't do anything for my expectations really of this story, because I knew, obviously, we have the setup at the end of Endgame for what this is going to be. It's a passing of the torch, the mantle, a literal passing of an item in the shield. And we knew it was going to be about the relationship between two characters that previously didn't really like each other that much in terms of Sam and Buck. But what Falcon and Winter Soldier benefited from with WandaVision, I think, for me personally, as a project, was that especially that first 2/3 of WandaVision, when it was strictly the TV stuff and you only had inklings of the outside plot, is that every week when WandaVision ended, I just said, man, Kevin Feige loves television. Like, it was such a tribute to start there. And it's funny because this was supposed to be the first show until COVID swapped the release order because of production. But WandaVision being first, I think, was such a beautiful, happy accident, because it was like Marvel saying, look how much we love TV, and we will love it just as much as we love movies. So by the time WandaVision was over, I was like, oh, they could do anything in TV. They could do X-Men in TV. They could do Silver Surfer on TV. Like, they could just do whatever, and I would trust them.
And I think to add on to that as well is that after Endgame and Infinity War, and I guess the Infinity Saga, as we're now calling it, which is sort of from Iron Man up till, I think, Far From Home, there is so much story there, and it has such a cataclysmic ending that to move forward, I feel like we need that time to sort of rebreathe again. And what was great about Phase 1 is that we get to focus on these individual characters and their origin stories. And I'm not saying that we didn't get time with Wanda, Vision, Bucky, or Sam in the other films, but not as much time as obviously the main characters. So these shows are actually a really great opportunity to reestablish the characters themselves and also give the audience an appreciation and connection with them. You want to feel for them. You want to have some sort of connection and emotional attachment to them moving forward, so that when we get to the next Avengers film, we will worry about them and the threat in the larger scale of things, as opposed to just, oh, well, they'll be fine, or that they're hanging out in the back, they're doing something else separately.
Right.
Yeah, well, I want to when we hit spoilers in a few minutes, I want to know what ended up surprising you from this series. We'll get a bit deeper into it. I'm just going to jump over. Well, I said jump over. I'm just going to use my phone now to read out a couple of comments I got on the Discord about it. Actually, from people who are in the chat tonight anyway, so they can add to these comments if they want to. One is Chad, who asked you about the mint humbug, Charlie. How could you forget Chad? Chad said, I loved WandaVision and need to give Falcon and Winter Soldier another chance. The first episode felt like I was watching a slightly less exciting Marvel film, but with characters I don't care much about. Everyone says it gets better, and I enjoy the MCU, so I may like it, but it just seemed way less original after WandaVision, which is why I asked a question about how if WandaVision its style might have altered your expectations for this series. But I'm with the people that have told Chad it gets better. For me, it really got going this series. I was enjoying it up to episode 4, but episode 4 for me was where it really got going, and I started to care more about the characters as well, which I'm going to come on to in a moment. But I want to read out Brad Snokes' comment here. And Brad is also in the chat, or was in the chat. He said, I really enjoyed The Falcon and Winter Soldier. Coming from a traditionally non-MCU diehard fan, this show plus WandaVision have really begun to shift my feelings towards the franchise. While WandaVision was different and weird, in brackets, both good things, Falcon and Winter Soldier was a fun and inspiring new piece of MCU content that I feel like lives up to the tradition of these films and the story's ability to comment on the current state of our world. Sam is hands down my new favorite character in the universe, and I look forward to seeing him take on a bigger role in the MCU. And he's given it a 10 out of 10. Now, no offense to Chad, but I'm more in line with Brad's thoughts here. I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10. I will give my score later, but I don't come into these series the same as I do with Star Wars. You know, I'm not a diehard MCU fan. I'm a fan, but I'm not to the same level I am with Star Wars. But both of these shows have upgraded all of the core characters for me. You know, with Wanda and Vision, I came out of that series really liking them a lot more than I did going into it, and the same with Bucky and Sam. I mean, previously, the yellow-headed Caracara Falcon, commonly found in the tropical and subtropical South America, was my favorite Falcon. But now it's the Sam Wilson Falcon from Disney Plus, you know. He's really, I don't think he's my new favorite character like he is for Brad, but what struck a chord with me was his positivity. The personality of his character. We won't go into the details just yet until we hit spoilers, but you know, there are some bad aspects of our society, you know, race that are brought up in this series, and he always addresses each of them with optimism, you know, for humankind. So he's a character that, again, like Wanda and Vision, in a different way, really grew on me from this series. But I'm not going to give a 10 out of 10 like Brad did, but we'll come on to our scores, all of our scores a little bit later. And finally, one slightly negative, however, valid comment from Sanely Red. He gave it 0 out of 10 for this one reason. Valid point. No Luke Skywalker cameo. Darn it.
You know what? He's not wrong.
No, I mean, it's factual.
He's not wrong.
It's factual. I thought that Mark Hamill really phoned it in by doing nothing. Like he could have done something. It's just the utter laziness from this man.
They had the scans, they had the CG scans. This is just pure laziness on their half.
I mean, we kind of come to expect a Luke Skywalker cameo. One, because we got one in The Mandalorian. Two, because I don't know if we were actually promised one with WandaVision. There was a quote, whether it was a misquote or not, where we would get a Luke Skywalker-esque cameo in WandaVision, which, you know, we didn't, to be fair to that sort of relative level. But yeah, so maybe it's just something that we come to expect now with a Disney Plus series. Right. Before we get into spoilers, where you can tell us what you really think, guys, what would you score? We had out of 10, didn't we, with the guys on Discord? So what would you, Alden, give this series out of 10?
Ooh, Alden, he's a big fan of number scores. I'm going to say 8 because 8, it's just always that number. It just feels right. Just feels organic. It's a series that I feel hits so many important themes and explores them very well. It's not perfect, certainly not. I don't think any of us think it is. I don't have thoughts on, like, is it better than WandaVision? Is it better than The Mandalorian? It's apples, oranges, and bananas at that point. They're so different. But yeah, I think 8 works. I mean, it hits all of its goals. It just maybe hits some of them a little clumsier than others.
Charlie?
Yeah, I think that's a really great sort of summary. I think I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to make it an 8.5. I thought they did a really great job at delivering on the show's promise, which I won't say right now in case people don't want to get spoiled about anything. It's kind of set up an end game, but I think the key promise of the show was to do something. They did that. Also, we got a better understanding and character arc transforming journey for both Sam and Bucky, and not to mention some really, really great performances from, I think, all the actors in the show, quite frankly, whether that's Carl Lumley in his character appearance or as Wyatt Russell in his scenes. I thought just really great acting all around. Alden, you're right, there are moments which I think could have been done better. I think that the episode count might be debatable. I know I just listened today to a podcast, Fade to Black. Check it out. It's really great. They interviewed Malcolm Spellman, the writer, who said that they originally were going to have 8 episodes, but trimmed it down to 6 based on storytelling reasons. But I do wonder if maybe one more episode could have helped them flesh out a bit more. But I'm not writing the show, so who am I to say?
And you have to wonder how much of storytelling reasons is really COVID reasons. You know,
yes, there's also that behind the scenes. I think the idea was that some of the story was altered because of COVID, and obviously filming was taking place, had to stall because of COVID. There were rumors about potentially a bioweapon subplot that was perhaps cut, and I can understand why they would want to get rid of that. So I'm not going to judge them too harshly, which is why I think 8.5 is a nice sort of round score.
So 8 from Alden, 8.5 from Charlie. I've seen a 7.5 in the chat from Philip Hawkins, and also 9.5 from Glenn, the geeky hippie. I can exclusively reveal, at least to Charlie and Alden, because everyone in the chat will have seen this already, that Sanely Red has upgraded his 0 to an 8 out of 10. Really solid show.
Incredible.
And I was at one point a 7.5, but I bumped it up to a solid 8 yesterday when I was talking to someone as well. Solid, really solid show, as Sanely Red said, is fair for me. Let's give a little warning now. We're going to head into spoilers. So the guys alluded to some things that they felt could have been done better with this show. We're going to go into those details. Other characters apart from the obvious as well that show up. We'll do that for the next 15 minutes or so. So this is your warning. Should we do like a 5-second countdown?
Absolutely, if you want to, yeah, absolutely.
Don't leave me on my own. It'll be awkward. Okay,
right,
5, 4,
3,
3, 2, 1.
Happy New Year.
0 is for my score of Alden's enthusiasm during that awkward countdown. Right. And Brad Snowkey is sticking to his 10, I think. Oh, no, he's downgraded to 8 now. So he came, he had the buzz. He had the buzz after that finale. And now he's had time to let it settle in, and he's downgraded it to a solid 8. And he's also added Sam's positivity is what really took it to that next level for me. It really spoke to me in where I am in my life right now. And I think there are a lot of parallels in that series with the world we are living in. There's no secret there. So let's talk about, I think it was Alden who said there was, or maybe it was Charlie, 50-50 here. There were things that could have been done better in this series for you. What were those things?
I think that there's a few aspects of the ending. Obviously we're in our spoiler section here. So I'm jumping far ahead. Obviously there's a lot of train track to get to what I'm about to say, but I think that one of the shining aspects of this show is Wyatt Russell as John Walker. And I think that he is just, Philip Hawkins right here, this comment definitely highlights what I'm about to say in a lot of ways. I don't think that they are redeeming John Walker, to be clear.
I agree.
It's definitely premature to say that. It's one good moment, one hesitation. He chooses, instead of killing in the last episode, to save the senators and then later on help. That does not mean that he's not a day away from snapping again. We see that he aligns with a villain at the end in the wonderful Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who nobody expected to be in this show. A huge get as Contessa Valentina de Allegra de Fontaine or something like that. I think I almost had it.
Spot on. I think
and she, allies with Walker, and all that's well and good. I just think that it confuses the audience a little when he's joking around with Bucky and he's like quoting Abe Lincoln, and he's like, there's a pat on the back when they walk away. Like, it's definitely that. To me, I think that is infinitely more effective if it is super reluctant and you are worried that he'll botch it the entire time. It should have had some raw vibes. So that last episode with that and our power broker reveal, that might have been, something that would have benefited from maybe not a full 8 episode run, but even 7, just one more that could have maybe stretched out that final battle into 2 episodes, something to that effect.
Yeah, that was pretty much my key complaint as well, is that I don't think John is redeemed. I think the reason why it's set up that way is important. For me, I can appreciate why people saw that last scene and was like, well, look, he's got everything he wanted. But I think that's on purpose. Like, the whole point is that his key punishment for murdering someone in broad daylight is to remove, I guess, one, his identity as Captain America. 2, he's lost basically his job. Like, his role, his governmental background, all the payments that he would have got from, being a veteran, that's gone. His role in the finale then sets him up, because he should be arrested because he's a citizen going out into a random battle, and he shouldn't really be doing that. He not only gets a completely new costume, and code name, which I think, quite frankly, gets rid of kind of all the pressure of Captain America and lets him have less of a liability because he's now a new code name. But also, he's probably got a better pay. He's now got his payment back. He's got a new job. He's got everything sorted out. For me,
because now he's being paid with Seinfeld royalties, which, as we know, are
getting paid by Elaine. And I just think that for me, it was less of a redemption and more of pouring gunpowder into an already lit keg, because that's obviously going to blow up next season. And you see how giddy he is. He's happy that he's got this new role. It's not going to stay like that for long, I don't think.
Yeah, I think I'm with you both. I don't think it was a redemption. And if it was, then as Phil said in the chat, it probably did need an extra episode to really pull that off and make it clear. Yeah, it didn't quite feel like a redemption for me. And I never I never forgave. I didn't forgive him, and I'm generally quite a forgiving person. But I was always playing catch up with this series. I was 3 episodes behind at one point, and whilst I didn't get spoiled too much with Twitter, but I did see that he was getting some heat. The character, at least, was getting some heat on Twitter, wasn't he? There were a lot of memes out there.
Yeah,
for this for John Walker's Captain America.
Yeah, and I mean that's part of the power of this show, using audience expectations to support its point, I think, and knowing its place in the universe to support its point. Because even on premise alone of a government selected replacement, just his smile and wink at the end of the first episode, instant hate, because Fahey and the creators, Malcolm Spellman and Kari Skogland, they know how much we loved Steve. They know how much Buck loved Steve. They know how much Sam loved Steve, and how important him selecting his own successor in Sam was. So John could have been the best guy ever, and you would have had an uphill battle with the audience. So it's just good booking, you know, to borrow a term from wrestling. Like you are turning the audience immediately and putting all the negativity on this guy. And then the audience at that point is just waiting to be right. So when he finally does bring the shield down and murder the incorrect Flag Smasher, we are there like, see, there he is. I knew it. I knew he was going to be that guy.
You're completely right. It's all an intention. It isn't magical that we had this reaction. It's all in the story, and and it's all in the acting as well. Because that, like you said, Alden, that wink at the end of episode 1 was improv. That was improv by Wyatt Russell.
I didn't know that.
And that was like, just with a little wink, you're like, I hate this dude. Yeah. I hope he gets killed. I hope he explodes. Like, I don't care about his family. And then within the first minute of episode two, you get to see a little bit more about him. And you're like, okay, well, obviously this isn't just plain cut. This guy is completely bad. It's complicated. And that's what's great about the show, is that it elicits those responses based on...
And that's the thing, because like that complication is so funny, because a couple episodes later, and we're spending... we're going on a Madripoor vacation with Helmut Zemo, Baron Helmut Zemo, and who is unequivocally a villain who has way more blood on his hands, who is responsible for the disassembling of the Avengers before Thanos came. And we're like, I love this guy, because he's not here to replace someone that we love. They can just build out his character. So it's playing so much against you. And also, to make it, I guess, a little heavy for a moment, there's a lot of turmoil in the US right now. And obviously you guys are based in the UK, but you have TVs, so everybody can see sort of how the last year has been. And just the idea of your hero picked your hero and the government picked this guy immediately, especially how has young people like shaking their fist. Then you add in the elements from Truth, Red, White, and Black with Isaiah Bradley and Eli Bradley. And it just underlines so much of the dishonesty. The show is honest about dishonesty, and then you're just frustrated until the finale.
And those elements continue to exist even after Sam is Cap. We see that specifically in the ending, where Isaiah is presented with this incredible monument to his heroics in his career. And the wording where it specifically says like they were tested against their will, which is great. But also at the same time, he's doing that in secret. He's had to fake his own death all these years. Whereas, I've forgotten people's name. Agent Carter, Sharon Carter, gets to go in front of the senators and is sort of cherished about in this whole nepotized display of, oh, look, it's Agent Carter's niece. Isn't she great?
We're so sorry for what we did to your family.
Sorry. Yeah. And then also we get to see US agent. He's like, yep, I've got a new job. It's a different part of the government. It's still the government. And they're like, oh, look, Zemo blew up those people. Thank God he did our job. That's great. Like, that isn't us. That isn't supposed to be us going, oh, yes, we agree with Val. It's supposed to tell you they are still flawed, bad institutions that need help, and that's why Sam is so important.
And that's why I like that. Oh, sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
No, go, Alden. It will be more interesting coming from you. I promise.
I was just going to add that's why I love that the show went against my expectations for the Sam reveal. Choreography-wise, we got the awesome flying with the shield through the glass, and we got tons of great Cap moments. But I assumed that they would do the obvious move, which I think would have been calling back to First Avenger. I thought that when the battle's over, Buck's going to go, let's hear it for Captain America, and the citizens are going to cheer. And instead, they just let him monologue. And really, no one around him is happy to see him except the citizens. There's that one gentleman who says, no, that's Captain America. So we get a little bit of the people's perspective in that moment. And later on, of course, in the wonderful ending in Louisiana. But we don't get a raucous roaring like we have a new Cap moment. And Sam underlines that by saying, I know every time I pick this up, there are people that are going to hate me. I feel the stares. I feel them right now. I feel everything that you're thinking. So the show is almost saying like, no, this was 6 episodes of prologue. Like now the fight starts, which is what Isaiah even says.
Yeah, the real battle begins for Sam. I suppose. That
was a great remix.
I know. I was like, did we lose? Is this just happening for me?
Am I back?
You're back.
You should have told us you're dropping a new DJ track.
Did I do the DJ thing again? I did that last week, apparently, and it was off the chain, apparently.
It was like when the Dark Troopers came.
I was about to, because I've got this Daniel Brühl-like mustache, I was about to do my Zemo,
some wonderful facial furniture you are rocking there, Charlie. No, I will try not to turn this stream into one of my banging DJ sets again. But I think banging is what caused it. It seems that my mic is very sensitive. I was just picking up on the ending with the statue. And I know it's an American show. It's set in America, but some of these social issues are relevant to so many countries around the world. And with that statue, the lovely moment with the statue. For me, from a UK point of view, of course, I know what's going on in America and what has gone on, but I'm thinking about the Windrush scandal, which Charlie will know what I'm talking about. If you saw John Boyega was in one of the episodes. The BBC did it with Amazon. Small Axe, yeah. For an international audience, that might explain a bit more about Windrush. There's discussion at the moment about more recognition for the Commonwealth countries' help during World War II. To have them recognised more with monuments and statues, etc. So I think. There's many outsiders that can sort of relate to their own kind of surroundings as well. But talking about Sam being the new Captain America, I didn't watch any of the trailers going into this, so I don't know what we were told in advance. But was that a complete surprise to you guys in terms of happening in this series? And were there also any sort of characters that showed up that really surprised you as well?
You go first.
Oh yeah. I was just gonna say it was interesting because the trailers made it clear that it was because the end of Endgame makes you think like, oh cool, next time we see Sam he'll be Cap, or at least he'll be almost ready. The trailers for this showed us a lot of the training with the shield intercut and sold it as if that would be happening throughout this series. Little did we know it all happened at the end of the penultimate chapter. So I thought that we might get to see. In my mind, I was theorizing maybe like proto Sam suits, maybe him like, do I keep the wings? Do I not keep the wings? Like I thought there was going to be a lot of what kind of Cap am I going to be? And they didn't do that. And instead it was what I loved was the emotional journey. And then by the end, it was once he figured out his heart and his mind, then it was obvious, I'm still going to use the wings because I'm good at it. And because I don't have super soldier serum. So all of that, like what kind of Cap am I going to be? Was resolved, I thought, in a really like classy way. And the trailers sort of made it seem like it was going to be way more simple. The trailers, there's one trailer, I think it's the second one, that made it seem really buddy cop. And it was not that at all this series, which was great.
Yeah.
And then in terms of characters, I think it was just Rhodey that I was really excited about.
Yeah, you know what? I even forgot he was in it. Like that was such a great little cameo and so important that character appearing in this.
Yeah,
and I do feel like it does do. I think the show does a great setup of where we might see that character, and I'm sure there's certain elements of that character's journey that might be easier or sort of very much like Sam becoming Cap may impact on that character's journey. I'll say that. For me, I did expect him to become Cap in the series because they kind of set that up. But I think what, like Alden was saying, they did a great job of explaining what that decision actually means. At the beginning of the show, Sam looks at the shield and it reflects Steve Rogers, the man that he knew, the one he looked up to. But I think what's so great about the show is that it sort of delves into, because there's also the element that he doesn't want to talk about openly, which is obviously the racial element that he already has to deal with every day of his life, being just a Black American. And so he sort of puts a lot of that on the idea of, I can't pick this up because it's Steve's shield. And then he sees what happens when, one, somebody else who is not worthy of the shield or doesn't understand what that shield represents takes on that. But in a way that does he represent the shield? He represents what America is. John Walker represents what America is because he's a flawed representation of that flawed system. Sam is really a representation of what America could be. And I think he has to not only go see what the shield represents in terms of Steve, but also what it represents in terms of Isaiah, what they did to Isaiah, which is, I mean, it stems from what happened. Like Steve has a responsibility in the sense that they wanted to recreate him.
Yeah.
And abused so many Black Americans to do so. And then erase them from history, because that's what we do. Like you were mentioning, Jamie, especially in Britain, it's not just a US issue. This is stuff that we constantly have arguments on Twitter, and people constantly argue, oh, well, obviously Black people only appeared in the UK, like in the 1800s. Not true whatsoever. In fact, here's a fun history lesson. There are so many Black people documented in history. There is a Black trumpeter on a tapestry from one of Henry VIII's, like I think when he was marrying Catherine of Aragon, she brought him over from Spain, and there is documentation. There's an image of this man, and there is also documentation of this man going to Henry VIII, writing him a letter saying, "I'm not getting paid enough. You need to give me a raise," and then Henry VIII giving him the raise.
That's amazing.
So it's there's this constant weird way of erasing history. We don't get taught that in school.
No.
We get taught that Britain stopped the slave trade, which, I mean, we still exploited and used elements of the American slave trade. We took cotton and so much materials from America who was being done by slaves. And like, we don't get taught these elements, and we don't get taught that thing. And so it's really interesting for Sam to look back and sort of open up those pages of history that were once closed the book.
Right.
And that is so, not only is it shown through Sam's optimism and his truthfulness, he tells the senator, he says, no, you have to understand this, okay? He goes, I'm a Black American. I know what it's like to be like every day of my life to be treated like this. But also you have to understand all these other elements. And then he's just like the blue. I'm not a white dude with blonde hair and blue eyes. Okay, I am Sam Wilson.
I love the cut to Walker head down. Like,
and it also it's represented in the suit, which I think is a really great representation of the key plot point from Black Panther, which is that Wakanda, T'Challa's sort of mission at the end of that film was to do what Killmonger could have done, which is open up to the world and give back and help out these other countries that didn't have the same protection, I guess, that Wakanda had. And now we see the symbol of America is not only a Black African American, but also one who has been given technology and defenses and armory from Wakanda. So that's another layer of like, there's so much cool little details. And they don't have to tell you that. They don't have to go, by the way, Wakanda did this special thing because of this. It's all in there, but it's how the audience accepts and like diverges into those details.
I have to say, minor thing, and I think someone said it in the chat as well. I didn't really like his outfit, Sam's Captain America outfit. It might grow on me, but from that one episode,
for me personally,
really,
what I really actually do like about Marvel recently, because pretty early on, they were, I think, very adamant and sort of, I guess, not completely, by the way, but they were a bit hesitant to delve into the pure comic costumes. We do get elements like Alden, I think you tweeted earlier, the Thor costume from 4-1 with the full-on helmet, which we do get to see.
They had
a lot of those
teases. And they were they were also lucky. I mean, think about who they built this world on. You build it on Tony Stark, which just sort of has the verisimilitude of it's an armor, so it's easy. You do First Avenger, which you can work in with the Star Spangled Man with a plan, and then veer into more of the gear. Widow and Hawkeye were easy to skirt around a little bit because of their shield connection.
But those characters were very much based on the costumes from the Ultimates comics.
From the Ultimates,
And the Ultimates comics were basically, for those who don't know, a different version of the Marvel Universe that was made in the early noughties. That was supposed to be modern,
and
current,
naughty.
And naughty. A radical dude. There was, so it's like very like modernized and different, and they attempted different things. That's where we first saw a Black Nick Fury. That's where they based the look on Samuel Jackson, who then later on became that character, which was pretty cool. But like the costumes we see for like Hawkeye, which is just like a sort of like the little jacket of no arms. That's pretty much from the Ultimates. Now we're getting full on Scarlet Witch from the 616 comics, the pure headdress, and the Sam Wilson costume. I'm pretty sure it's like straight out of the book.
Yeah, it's
little differences, but pretty much the same.
So for sort of hardcore Marvel, fans who grew up with the comics, they're seeing that. They're seeing what they grew up with on screen, and true to form, I suppose is what you're saying. But I've never made a secret of this. I didn't, and don't read the comics. So for me, it was the first time I'd seen this style.
Totally.
And I was like,
Do you think that it's hokey, Jamie, or like over designed, or like I'm just curious because
I feel over designed. Yeah, I'll go with over designed because I at one point I wanted to sort of give it the benefit of the doubt, that it's rudimentary and this is an outfit that will grow as he sort of grows into becoming the character, and it probably will. But then again, it's not a rudimentary outfit, it's a highly skilled, tailored outfit still. So it's a little bit much for me, to be honest. And I feel like I'm just a bit worried about his exposed head as well.
I never
some protection.
It never bothered me, right, with the exposed head and that style of, because before he had goggles, but that style of all neck and ear coverage and forehead coverage, but this is all open. Sam's had it. Cyclops has had it. It's a comic design that they've gone to a lot, and I never had a problem with it until the other day. Someone said, Sam flying at that speeds, if a pebble hits him, it could split his head open. And I was like, well, yeah, should probably get a cap helmet.
Ant said, in terms of the outfit, I was hoping they would have done a more African roots designed cap costume as it was built in Wakanda, similar to the design that Bucky has for his arm.
I think my issue with that is that, yes, they designed the costume, but it's still to present an African American, not an African, if that makes sense. So
yeah, and it's also just the we don't. One thing I always go on about on like my podcasts and stuff is that we don't always have the knowledge. The characters in the stories don't have the same knowledge as us. They don't have the same perspective as us. So you got to keep in mind that costume was not Wakanda's idea. It was a favor, and Bucky commissioned it. So Buck is, of course, going to go. I mean, he's from the World War. He's going to think of Steve. He's going to think of those influences. Like if Bucky is asking them, because we know he asked them off screen, he's probably like, I want you to do your version of Steve's suit. So
I will say I like Gaz's comment here. I think the way I framed it the other day was Steve Rogers is what America thinks it is.
Mm-hmm.
John Walker is what America actually is. Sam Wilson is what America could be.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I just want to bring back up this comment from Glenn, which links into a question I want to ask you guys. Glenn said the chemistry between Sebastian and Anthony, especially for the comedy, was incredible. Was there a standout performance for you in this series? Charlie, we'll go with you first.
What, just in terms of these two working together, or just in general?
In general, in the series, was there one standout performance that you could pluck out?
I mean, I've been banging this drum since 2016. And I have to say, I absolutely adore Daniel Bruhl as Baron Zemo. And you can tell his enjoyment and sort of giddy optimism of be able to play this character again just seeps off the screen. Every single moment you see him. There's a moment in the last episode where they announced that the flag smashers have been killed and the assailant is unknown. And he looks at the camera and does a cheeky smile and then turns away, reads his book. He gets everything he wants. And I love that from a villain. Not because I agree with them, but because it's just so good. And I think I love him so much in Civil War. I think he's one of the best and most underrated characters before this. I feel he was so underrated. His performance was incredible. The character made sense. He actually won, which we never really get to see before. And I thought what was also interesting is that I was like, this character's great, but I really did wish we get to see the character's costume from the comics, and that's a shame. Yeah. And then they're like, well, do you know what? We're going to bring him back. We're going to give him the coat. We're going to make him a baron. He's going to be rich. He gets gets everything, gets the purple mask. He wears it for 5 minutes. Don't care. He has it on. I'm sold.
It was a glorious 5 minutes. A glorious 5.
And there's a question on that from Ant. I don't know if you can see on screen there.
Yeah,
what's the deal with projects? For me, they're definitely setting up. I think there's a comic called Thunderbolts, which is this team of villainous characters who are trying to be better, and the leader is quite often Baron Zemo. And I think they're definitely going to set that up, and I think that it would be great to see Daniel Bruhl in a team energy. He's kind of the anti-Tony Stark in the sense that we get to follow him, bring this team together. But what I also think is a lot of the show, they don't explain certain things. But I also think that there's a scene in episode 3 where he talks about the fact that this is his base. This is his garage with all of cars and stuff. And that mask, he looks at that mask for a decent amount of time. The camera stays on him. And they don't have to say what that's about. But I think what's great about it is that it gives the audience, he lets their imaginations run free. For me personally, I was like, well, we know that Baron Zemo is he works for the Sokovian Armed Forces. He's one of the best killers, whatever. So, and we know that he's a baron. His father had the baronage as well. So I was like, maybe his dad was also a famous fighter in the Sokovian army, and that was the mask that he wore. And that's why we didn't see it in the previous film. That's why that's my headcanon, if you want.
Heinrich Zemo, when he was
in
around,
the comics, yes.
Yeah, he was around more in the OG Cap days. So you could give him, some backstory in Thunderbolts. That could also be my theory, and not that everything needs to be connected like this, but that Val, Sharon, and Zemo will come to some sort of accord, because the Val and Zemo stuff already does seem to be playing in together a little bit. That they might be Walker and Zemo might be your first 2 members of,
which I think would be fascinating,
especially given that he's a super soldier now. Yeah, yes, exactly.
He's going to try and kill him. Oh, Glenn makes a great point. Plus Abomination, that'd be fantastic.
Plus Abomination, who we know is returning. And She-Hulk, Tim Roth's Emil Blonsky. I did want to give a shout out to, we've talked a lot about Sam, and it is primarily, he has top billing for a reason. It's sort of like a 60-40 show. But the performance that stuck with me the most is that Wakanda flashback with Ayo and Bucky, when Bucky finally realizes that he's not programmed anymore. That is just a stand back and let this man act. The tears of fear and then the tears of happiness that follow. You could see the change. And Sebastian Stan. I said on Twitter promoting this live stream that I was going to talk about Cake Bucky. Everything from the opening of this all the way to Cake Bucky at the end is just what a phenomenal character.
That is another thing. I think you made a great point. I think Sebastian Stan is the king of subtle performing. Like, not in terms of like he's not great. Like, I mean, there's a lot of bits of those performance that's so subtle that you could miss it. But I feel like I know some people are like, well, what's his character arc? What does he do? He starts the episode 1. He talks to his therapist. The 2 things he mentions, she asks him, do you have nightmares? He says no. The other thing, she asks him, what do you want to have? He says, I want to have like a happy life. Like, I want to be free again like I was back then. At the end of this series, and then we see him have nightmares. He can't even sleep on his bed. He has to sleep on the floor. In the last 2 episodes, we see him on a couch. He wakes up. The first thing he does is smile. The second thing we see is that he deals with his trauma. And he, like what Sam told him to do, he doesn't avenge anymore. He gives something back to the people that he took from.
And he admits to Sam that he has nightmares. He's not denying anymore.
He immediately admits to him.
He's like, yes, every night. And the thing that I love is that, at the beginning of the show, the therapist tells him, you have 10 contacts on your phone. You don't talk to any of them, and you ignore Sam's text messages. And so he has no personal connections. He goes on that one date, and then he runs out in the middle because of his guilt about Yori, who's a great underrated performance, by the way. I thought that gentleman was great. Yeah, he's very cool. And then at the end, and we know he how much hell and damage he caused as the Winter Soldier. And then at the end, he's got children hanging and playing on his bionic arm.
And he's not covering it up anymore. He wore a coat. Every time he went into action as the Winter Soldier, he rips the arm off his jacket. In the finale, he just takes the jacket off. He has his arm out on display. He's not wearing a glove. He smiles. He smiles so much in those last 2 episodes because he's freeing himself. He's become able to connect with people again. And I think both Sam and Bucky stop pushing themselves away and realize that they are good friends. And that's what's so beautiful about that. And that last final moment when it says Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Now we've gone completely back to seeing a Captain America and Bucky Barnes saving the day again. And that's really beautiful to see that.
Yeah, no, it kind of brings me back to what I said before. These series are working wonders for me in terms of my appreciation for these characters and understanding and enjoying the complexities of some of them as well. Sebastian Stan, it was a great performance. And yeah, Bucky is a character that I now want more from. I just wasn't fussed previously, but now I want more. I'm not done with him yet. I think it's hard to pick out a standout performance. There was a lot of great performances in Glenn's. I don't know if he's singling her out. Well, he has in terms of this, the context of this message. But Erin Kellyman was very good as the Carly, the leader of the Flag Smashers, and there is a Star Wars connection there, as Glenn's mentioned. She plays Empress Nest in Solo as well, and I would also agree with Glenn that she's got a big future ahead of her as well. I didn't realize she's only 22 and she's already ticked 2, probably the 2 biggest franchise boxes there are.
I think the reason why I don't actively jump to Erin Kellyman when it comes to performances is because she doesn't need to tell me that she's amazing. She's already at the top. In my head, I'm like, oh yeah, performances are great. And Erin Kellyman is just above it. Like, she is so good in everything I've seen her in. I'm telling you now, I wouldn't be surprised if she wins an Oscar at some point.
Yeah, I think this is no relevance to the discussion really, but that's what I'm here for. I'm pretty sure she is from Birmingham, the West Midlands of England, which is where I'm originally from. Not Birmingham, but I am from the West Midlands originally. But she's one of those Brummies that don't sound Brummy, but then again, she is also an actor. Of course, Brummies are like Ozzy Osbourne. That's how they speak in Birmingham.
Gotcha. I was about to ask, when does Erin Kellyman get thrown into the annual "this actor is rumored to play the Doctor" news cycle?
Look, I mean, she could
Charlie's
do it.
your Doctor Who, man. He might know.
She could do it. I was actually surprised because, like you mentioned, Jamie, about her accent. I'm really sad that when she got killed, she didn't go, Sharon! Like, who killed you? Sharon! Because it straight up was.
We need to do a Brummy dub of that. Right. Let's now Charlie, I think you touched on this. You touched on there being a season 2. Is that something that we know? Is it something that you think is likely, or we pretty much know that WandaVision, it was always talked about being a kind of one and done sort of thing, but I believe it's pretty much been confirmed recently with the they put it forward for an Emmy, I think, as a limited series. So that's pretty much been confirmed. Do you think that we're going to get a second season of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or do you think this is going to be these characters' stories are going to be continued elsewhere, like Wanda with Doctor Strange and the multiverse?
Yeah, I think for me, like, what's interesting about this whole thing anyway is that, like I said earlier, it's very much like the source material. So with some books you get, like some comics, you've got the actual series. So you've got like a series book, say like The Amazing Spider-Man. If you want to read about Spider-Man, you can find them there. But then there's event books, special events, what happened, that have different characters involved. And they're like, 6 issues usually, like a mini series, 6 issues long. So you get the 6 issues. That's the story. There might be tie-ins elsewhere, but that's pretty much it. WandaVision very much felt like a Wanda-focused miniseries, which affected different characters, but you don't necessarily need a sequel to that. It affects the wider universe, but you don't need to have a follow-up to that. This one felt differently. This one felt very much like we could expect to see a season 2. In fact, I was very much on board. I was like, they're definitely going to do season 2. But then they announced there's going to be Captain America 4. So I'm like, I think the likelihood is that we will see, obviously we're also going to see a Captain America 4 movie. I would like to see Captain America and the Winter Soldier. This is a thing that I find really interesting, and some people disagree with it, with my opinion, which is fine. I don't think it should be called Captain America the White Wolf. I don't think Bucky Barnes should be reclassified as the White Wolf, because for me, that feels such like a personal name for him. It's very much a connection with Wakanda. That's the name Wakandans gave him. It feels like it's something only the Wakandans should be able to call him. So I think he's not as bothered by the Winter Soldier name anymore. I think he's okay with like people looking up to him going, "Thank you for saving me." But with the whole White Wolf, I think like it's like something that only the Wakandans can call him. It's a sign of respect, as opposed to like, I don't know, that guy from Spider-Man who tells the guy to do a flip. I don't want him to be like, "Hey, White Wolf, do a flip."
Do a flip. That guy isn't he in the trailer for?
He's in the trailer for Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. Alden, do you want to take Ant's question here? Thinking about it, if they did a Civil War 2, would a TV series or a film work best? What do you think?
I will say that my first point ties in with the first Civil War movie. Do Civil War 2, just do not do Civil War 2 the comic, because Civil War the comic isn't good to me, and Civil War 2 the comic is not good to me. Huge flashing, just my opinion sign there. But I am not a fan of either of those. But then they do Civil War in the MCU, and they, in my opinion, crushed the book. And I think that they knocked it out of the park. So if they wanted to, first of all, I don't want it to be soon, like maybe phases down the road. I don't know what it would be about, because MCU doesn't really have secret identities, and that's what it was about in the comics. The second one was weird, and it had weird power dynamics, but right? Yeah, about Inhumans and things. So if you're gonna do MCU Civil War 2, you would need to come up with some sort of conflict. It couldn't just be about accountability and who works for who anymore. Maybe something personal. I think, just off the top of my head, if I was pitching it, I would say do the Civil War of sorcerers, with Scarlet Witch and Strange now, Mordo still out there. I think that you could do something interesting there. But yeah, I would say
you should call it Civil Warp.
Civil War what?
Civil Warp.
I like that. I like that. I have a single cam right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
you've taken over
just been learning new things about StreamYard. Didn't know that I could do some like vision
Look at that
mixing during the
look at that
show.
beautiful face, that Stark Expo.
Did you enjoy that, Alden?
Yes, my new Stark Expo jacket from Box Launch.
Let's give Charlie his moment in the hot sun. There he is. We've got a close up now of that glorious facial furniture. Right. Thank you everyone in the chat, and thank you to Alden and Charlie. We'll start to wrap up now because I'm hungry, basically. But Charlie has his aunt's comment here provoked that noise that you just unleashed from your furry mouth.
Yes, because pretty much like Alden says, if you're taking away the key element, like if you take the name Avengers versus X-Men and make that into a film, completely new story, that would be cool. The story as is, I'm not
it's
ready.
Better. It's better than both Civil Wars.
It's better than both Civil Wars, definitely.
Yeah,
but
it's definitely a slam bang. Like Avengers versus X-Men is like 10 issues of just I want to draw cool stuff. Is basically what it feels like. Like the conflict is so two grown men that just can't listen to each other.
Well, the
Scott and Cap.
The conflicts in most of these comic books, like the Civil War and stuff, mainly like when it comes to Wanda or like all that stuff.
Yeah,
like the Avengers don't really come off as great people. They're like in House of M, which is what WandaVision was kind of based on. You can see why they didn't adapt that storyline completely, because they're pretty much like, well, we should kill Wanda. And it's like, probably not the best idea, I'd say, Avengers or X-Men. So yeah, like if you had Wolverine hanging out with Sam's Cap, of course I'm going to buy like a 50 tickets. Of course I am. Like,
now,
I'm a dog.
I propose to you both instead. Wolverine, in the comics, he was born right after the Civil War. In the Fox movies, he fought in the Civil War. He's an 1800s man, ages very slowly. What if after Isaiah Bradley, fought the Winter Soldier, if he encountered Logan? That would be a cool way to tie him in, I think, and place him. Wolverine could encounter Isaiah Bradley. He could encounter Hank Pym. He could encounter Peggy Carter. And could do...
in the comics and also in the films, or in the comics, Captain America, the project that makes Captain America, is called Project Rebirth, but it's also called Weapon Plus.
Yeah.
And in the
Incredible
Hulk, in the Incredible Hulk, they call it Weapon Plus. So the idea is there, like the groundwork is there if they want to eventually get to Wolverine.
And that's one of the like, it's so cool but so hokey that the comics were like, we've called him Weapon X for years, but the X was 10. Like that's nothing to do with Xavier.
I mean, I would say, with my uneducated opinion here, anything's possible. This thing is going to outlive us all at the end of the day. Much like Star Wars, I imagine. Yeah, but but
it makes me sad too.
Maybe you can stream Disney Plus in the afterlife. I actually don't know. I'll get back.
That feels like a Disney move. To like,
it would be very Disney move in depth. I do still want to wrap up because I'm still hungry, but there is a question here for you, Alden, from Glenn. There's no question for you, Charlie, at the moment, but there is one for Alden. So, Alden, do you watch Molly and Alex on Star Wars Explained?
I do. You might be asking that because my name was mentioned in their Q&A. I am. I do send in questions sometimes. Alex and Molly and I have worked together a few times. I've had both of them on Ahch-To Radio individually, and I've had them on together. So we're friends.
And vice versa. I've appeared on their network as well.
It's not a competition, Charlie. Okay.
I'm putting it out there.
The question wasn't for you.
Saying.
All right.
It was. There's a literal, so Charlie does Imperial Senate Podcast. There's a literal Imperial Senate explainer that has the Imperial Senate Podcast in it.
Yes, well, it's a comedy piece, so people hate it.
This is a good opportunity. Oh, you know what? No, I've seen that. You have. You've produced content for Star Wars Explained. Well, actually, this is a good moment to let you guys tell people a little bit more about, Alden. Glenn knows you from Star Wars Explained. Your name popping up. Tell Glenn a little bit more about Ahch-To Radio, a Star Wars podcast.
Yes. So Ahch-To Radio, a Star Wars podcast, is now twofold. It's the original show, which is me interviewing different Star Wars people. Jamie and Charlie have both been on. Jamie came on for The Empire Strikes Door, but we should definitely talk again for Lightspeed Tonight and other ventures. I know that you were on Imperial Senate Podcast for Lightspeed Tonight already. And so you're making the rounds with Wamaris. And so I do interviews with everybody in the Star Wars community that I am a fan of, that I feel has a passionate perspective, and we dive into the Star Wars backstories, opinions, all that stuff, and make it as heady and thematic and just sprawling as possible. And then there's also the second show on the network, which is hosted by the amazing and wonderful and genius Tori Fox, called The Mandatorian Creed. And she dives into season-long breakdowns of different Star Wars topics over multi-parts. And so this season she's doing lightsabers. And then I'm also one of the 3 members of the One and Done Film Club, a franchise movies analysis and commentary podcast. And we just did Pirates of the Caribbean. So start walking like this.
Yeah, well, I've put, Alden's made it very easy for me. You've got one of those link tree things, so I've put that in the video description so people can find all of your projects on the various platforms, social media accounts as well. Charlie, you don't have a link tree, at least one I can. No, hang on a second, maybe Alden.
I do.
No, Charlie has the link tree. I don't.
Charlie has the link tree. I apologize. Okay, now it is a competition. You're winning, Charlie. You've got the link tree. So anyway, Alden, I've linked
people go looking for me and they find him.
I've linked to your Twitter, I believe, and definitely Ahch-To Radio as well in the video description. Charlie, I have put your link tree because you're very organized. You've got it all within one link, all of your various things, including the Imperial Senate podcast. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Alden just mentioned his podcast, which is a really great sort of delve into many fantastic guests and really great sort of analysis stuff. The Imperial Senate Podcast, on the other hand, is a very crude and silly, stupid show. We're a quirky Star Wars podcast. So if you like the weird sort of fun conversations, we delve into maybe questions that you might not have asked before, like what does Count Dooku have in his underpants? Those sort of questions we dive into because these are the answers that we need.
Money.
We've had Alden on. That's true. We've had Jamie on recently to talk about his career and also Wamaris Watt and what we might be able to see him in the future. And you can also find me on another few other podcasts. I do a show on YouTube called Ponder Vision, and Twitch as well, kind of, but that's an MCU discussion podcast. So whenever the shows are back, we'll be doing more discussion shows on here, talking about everything. And also I have a Patreon, so you can support me on Patreon where I do loads of other shows. But mainly the main core show I've been doing at the moment is called Batman Returned, which is a really in-depth analytical and discussion show about the Batman franchises. We do
with
it
Alden, right?
With Alden. So me and Alden go back. We go through all the different Batman films. We're doing season 2 right now. In fact, we'll be doing The Dark Knight Rises very soon. So we'll be doing the Christopher Nolan trilogy right now. And then I think season 3 will be the Snyder stuff, which Alden is very much looking forward to, as much as he is about Sonic the Hedgehog.
Well, I've put the link tree in. I know that, so that will take people to all of the various ventures you mentioned. I've got a feeling I might have put your YouTube link in as well, just because it's native to where we currently are streaming. Perfect. So people can jump over to your channel as well to check out Ponder Vision. Gaz Nottingham said, I enjoyed this review show very much. Cheers to your guest, Jamie. See you around, kid. Yeah, Gaz, we'll see you on Thursday if you're around for the usual live stream. But Alden and Charlie, thank you very much for joining me. I know I said it would be 30 to 40 minutes. It was probably never going to be that. We've doubled it.
Zero chance.
You can't put us two in a room and expect it to last for like.
When you told us that, like full disclosure behind the scenes, and you're like, "Oh, we'll do like 30 to 40 minutes." I was just like, "Young fool."
Only in the end have I understood that it was never going to happen, and I'm probably just now going to starve. I'm going to starve. But Glenn's starting up a YouTube channel show later this year, not Star Wars related. Shocking. Wheel of Time. Amazon show related. Let us know when you've started that, Glenn, and we'll take a look. So, Alden, Charlie, anything you would like to add before we say goodbye? Final comments, final thoughts.
Make sure you get your vaccine. There you go.
Yes, when your time comes, and your time will come, Charlie.
And also, please, like, even when the pandemic closes or comes to an end, please continue to wash your hands regularly for about 20 seconds or more.
Yeah.
And don't be dirty, people.
You're getting very bossy here, Charlie.
Yeah.
Am I being bossy, or am I being protective and caring about people's well-being?
Yes, no, you are. No, I agree. I agree. Glenn agrees as well. If you can take the vaccine, and mask up. Nikolaki said, very insightful. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Alden, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are just keep coming back for more discussions. I love the long and sprawling discussions, and I think that it was a great choice on your part, Jamie, as a host, to wait a few days to do this. Let things sink in. Don't always read like super, we published it the day it came out. We're trying to get your click. Like, really, it's just sit back and think. So I'm just so happy to have been a part of this episode. Hopefully we can all meet again one day, perhaps for Loki or something like that. And it was just a lot of fun. And go watch The Empire Strikes Door and Lightspeed Tonight.
Thanks, Alden. I've watched them too much, mostly from the editing process. But and also just to say, I am still hungry. But just to say as well, I agree with you in terms of everybody wants to be in there first. I mean, it's impossible to be in there first when something drops to get the first reaction. Well, someone can do it, but there's so many doing it. But what I learned with The Mandalorian season 2, I was doing bells and whistles is an exaggeration, but I was doing sort of well-polished, edited reviews the day it was released. I took my time. I had it out by the evening in the UK. It was out in the morning in the UK. The Mandalorian episodes, but I kind of found myself sort of busting a gut to get it done to a level that I'm happy with. Streams are different. You've seen I'm an absolute mess on streams, technically and, physically, emotionally. Some might even say sexually. It's just all over the place. But something I learned, being a small YouTube channel, actually, there's no need to hurry from a YouTube kind of algorithm point of view, because I ain't going to be ranking up there anyway for the Mandalorian or for a Loki review yet, of course. So there's sort of no need to hurry in that sense. But also what I was finding, actually, people were coming to the reviews, like people I know, like, all of the names in the chat tonight are names that I know, at least it's YouTube profile names. Many of them were coming days later anyway, because not everybody is waiting there, refreshing, Disney Plus for the new episode of Falcon, Winter Soldier, or Mandalorian, or WandaVision to come live. So I think for Bad Batch, this is something I'm going to be doing again, sort of just giving it a few days and then doing something, to be honest. Just wanted to get that off my chest.
No, it's a perfect way of doing it. I think it also allows people to have a break, because I know a lot of people also watch reviews and stuff, and sometimes when you have a break, you're sort of refreshing the phone all day, like, oh, well, I've watched it now, I need to hear what everyone else is thinking immediately. Let me refresh it quickly. And you're like, where is everyone?
And it's just impossible to have a static opinion. Everything I've watched, I've grown to love more or grown to like less as it's happened. I have never left a theater and kept that same opinion, for ever. It just doesn't happen.
No, because that's how things work. Your opinion grows and it changes over time, whether that be through conversations. Like, I know, Jamie, you mentioned. You mentioned earlier.
Just to say, Charlie, sorry, we have got people we've got people back in the room who are trying to avoid spoilers. So we're back into spoiler-free mode. I don't know what mode we're in right now. Charlie, back over to you.
Yeah, sorry, I got a weird cough there for a second. I think that
frog in your throat from Frogger.
This guy.
He knew that the spoiler was coming. He put the frogs in there. But no, I definitely feel like, I think like you mentioned, like your score changed because of a conversation that you had for the show, and that's what this is all about. I think really, this is what I thrive for, these conversations, whether they be positive or negative. Alden and I don't agree all the time, but we will jump immediately into text after we watch the episode and go, what did you think of that? Like, what did you think of this? We'll share different opinions, and I love those moments. I love getting to sort of delve into that.
Yeah,
and I don't want to go any further because I know you'll want to eat food.
I am still hungry, by the way. I agree with you though, and I don't actually watch much YouTube, and hopefully, I in some ways I feel like I might be better for it. I don't know, but I know, of course, there are channels that's shtick, if you like, is to bash everything that's Disney, Star Wars related, or even Disney MCU related. I am aware of their presence, and also when I've mentioned I like The Last Jedi, which, by the way, was not an instant opinion. I was very confused by The Last Jedi for a while. It took a few viewings to really sort of form my current opinion, which is a positive, mostly positive opinion. And you know, I needed a lot of conversations for The Last Jedi to get where I am with it. And my point is, though, what's the point in having a mind if you can't change it? And I think, multiple viewings, conversations can sort of help you see things in different ways or from other people's point of views. And, I think I'm not bashing these channels. I couldn't even name one of them. But the sad thing about these channels, they actually can't change their mind anymore, because that is your shtick.
That, and it makes
the hate on everything.
You're too in deep.
Comes from Disney. Yeah, it gets views. I mean, I wouldn't know what that is, but I'm getting it all wrong. We're all getting it wrong. We're being too nice.
We're friends. The three of us in different ways. It's funny. I knew of Jamie through Ken Knapsack, and Jamie and Charlie knew of each other through another way, and me and Charlie knew each other another way. But Star Wars is what binds us all. And so what you're saying just makes me think of, forever will it dominate your destiny. Once you double down on clicks first and outrage first, you can't get out, and so you have to resist. And if that means you're going to be, you're going to be smaller, then, you have your integrity.
And I'll add to that with one little Marvel note, which is like the super soldier serum. Like, it only amplifies what's already in there in you. So if the opportunity to get paid more because of a YouTube channel or having certain views or that you don't necessarily have, it just amplifies what's already in there. I feel like we all have the opportunity to, we could all go down that path, but I feel like it's better to, be honest about what you think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm like so many people. I've had a bit of a rough time work-wise with the pandemic, and it's given me a chance to do more with this channel and kind of focus on it more. And I'm at a place now where I'd love to actually. It was something I just dipped into every now and again, but I'd love to make it more of a permanent thing. And you kind of look around, and this is how I know about these channels. You look around to see what's working, and then I'm kind of like, maybe I don't want this to work, but I think eventually, we'll find a way. We'll find a way to break through by sticking to our truths. If you genuinely despise The Last Jedi, that's absolutely fine. And build your channel around that and your brand. That's absolutely fine if you genuinely despise it. Anyway, I don't know why I've gone down on this tangent, because I'm still hungry. But quickly,
you sit down right there. No food for you.
Yeah.
Hungry for clicks.
Yeah, always. But I also just want to say quickly as well, thank you to Frogger and also Chad, who I noticed were diving out when we entered a spoiler chat, but actually stayed online on stream and muted just to give the channel some extra algorithm points or something. So thank you to both of you. You can't hear me saying
that's dedication.
Or saying that Frogger can, because Frogger's back. But just finally, Frogger mentioned Bad Batch. I can see there in the chat. Just finally, and quickly, how are you both feeling about the Bad Batch? What are we, like a week away now? 2 weeks away?
Oh my goodness.
Like a week, 10 days away, something like that?
Yeah, like nine or so days. I'm excited. I am. It's one of those things where, for me, Star Wars is sword and sorcery and mysticism first. So this isn't a project that I'm like clamoring for in the same way that I am for Kenobi. But I know that they're going to do something in this 70-minute pilot and by the time the 70-minute pilot's over, I'm gonna have a red headband on and some sort of war paint, and I'm gonna be ready for the whole season because that's just how it works. So I'm excited.
Charlie?
Yeah. For me, I feel like what's different about Marvel and Star Wars is that I love it when Marvel comes out like fast paced with content. Like I could take easily 16 MCU shows in a run and not feel like any like drain from it. But with Star Wars, it has to have a decent amount of waiting period for me to get into it. And it feels like it's been ages since The Mandalorian. So I am so eager and so, like you said, like a week. Is that a week? But we're nearly there.
I think it's like 10 days ish. Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's the thing with Star Wars. We're now, I mean, we were starved for like decades. So like, you know, we've got it so good these days, but it does, I agree, feel like such a long time since The Mandalorian season 2. And I suppose if you're looking at it from an MCU point of view, you had that dry spell with Disney Plus, and actually now the pandemic kind of shake up, if you like, of the schedule. And I know we're still waiting for Black Widow, but actually it's sort of gone in your favor because you're just getting spoiled. You had WandaVision, you had a few weeks gap, you had Falcon Winter Soldier, and then you've got a May gap, and I think June Loki.
Yeah, June Loki, much. July Black Widow, and somewhere in June, July, August is What If.
Yes, and that's like it makes the Star Wars feel a bit more special. I feel like when you have a decent amount of time gap between it, because I know people are like, oh yeah, and likely I would obviously enjoy watching Star Wars content if they released it once a week,
of course,
but there's something a bit magical about waiting for it.
Sure, and like I'm ready to be done with Bad Batch and build slowly to Boba Fett for Christmas. Like that feels like a good amount of time.
I agree. Also, I think that's the perfect amount of time actually, because like I mean, I don't buy into solo bombing. You know, I don't buy into that being a fatigue thing. I think a good chunk of that was perhaps it wasn't marketed so well to the more casual fan base, but also there was a proportion of the audience who did sort of boycott it. I do believe that after the Last Jedi. I don't think that was a fatigue thing because that was a 6-month gap. I think a 6 months,
and it was also it was out also in theaters at the same time as Deadpool 2 and a small indie movie called Infinity War. So that definitely did not help it either.
And I mean, with the thing that the Bad Batch has, I think, in its defense as well, is that obviously animation, I feel like has been exceptional for when it comes to Lucasfilm. Rebels for me is one of the best stories in Star Wars. Clone Wars, again, what a great show to have. And the amount that like the animation level in that final arc for season 7 was exceptional. But then the trailer for this,
no spoilers. I'm watching season 7 in a few days.
Oh, good. Okay, cool.
No spoilers. I'm the only one here that hasn't seen it, I'm pretty sure, but just for me, no spoilers, please.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't spoil it for you at all. It's just that it looks good. Does that make sense? Is that a spoiler?
Well, no, I mean, I've seen that with the progression I've had recently through the Clone Wars. Even this season by season, there's a difference in terms of the animation and how much better it looks.
And so it's the same with just the animation in general. So the animation looks great for this, and I feel like I'm a prequel boy. Like I grew up with the first 3 films for like a few years, and then we dived into the prequels on the big screen, and so I naturally gravitate to that time period and seeing the clones and seeing all these different different ships and stuff from like the prequel films is just so great. It's something I'm really excited about, especially because we don't really know much about it. It's very much an untapped territory. I don't even know we dived that much into it in the LDU. I think there might have been some stories, obviously, but the core story point for the show, I think, is really interesting.
Glenn, I'm just finishing season 6, so I'll be moving on to season 7 in a few days. So I should be up to date by the time the Bad Batch hits. Now, this stream has gone on so long, we've drained Ant's battery. Look at that. And that was actually 12 minutes ago. So
is he talking about phone or just in general? Because I've heard that before.
I think his human battery. We've just drained him.
He's gone.
We
now.
have drained his person.
He's going to become White Anthony now.
And that does remind me, because Ant's name is on it. I always forget because I'm a bad person. But thank you to all Patreon members, including those that you can see on your screen right now. And how do I get it off screen? There's an extended cameo. There we go. So thank you once again to Charlie and to Alden. As mentioned before, all of their the relevant links that we discussed are in the video description, so go and check them out. Thank you for joining us in the chat, and if you're watching in the future as well. Glenn, I'll answer this question on Thursday if you're around. Maybe I'll do a review. I'm hungry. So I'm going to go and eat now. Thank you, Sanely Red. When did I first mention that I'm hungry and I need to go? Like an hour ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was about episode 3 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
To yourself, it was probably 2 minutes into the stream. Out loud,
I've had a busy day saving the world. I need to.
Somebody get a pizza delivered to the studio.
I feel like Alden's shirt is not helping either.
Oh yeah, just looking at this.
I can't see it. Hang on, I've
egg.
I've covered you. Hang on.
Nice bowl of ramen, little egg boy hanging out.
No, don't, because people know, regular viewers know that I've got some ramen beef with Japan at the moment. So
really,
anything Japanese related, it's just stressing me. Japan is stressing me at the moment.
At least it's not a chicken Caesar salad, right, Jamie?
Well, I'm not Paul Bettany, Charlie. But that's another tangent. I don't think Alden knows about this, but
I do now.
Some in the stream know about my my incident involving Paul Bettany and a chicken Caesar salad. But we'll talk about that again maybe another time. But no, I love Japan. I'm just waiting to hear. I might be able to return to some sort of version of my old work, and it's all based on Japan's COVID situation, and they're currently in a state of emergency. That's not me branding what their situation is. That is what they call it, a state of emergency. So I'm very stressed about Japan, and that even includes seeing ramen t-shirts. Right. I think we'll end now. I'm going to go and eat. This is the point where, yes, thank you, Frogger. I will go and eat. Usually I can't end the streams. It's sort of like you hang up. No, you hang up sort of thing. So I'm going. I'm going to hang up now. So thank you, everybody in the chat, for the 100th time. I'm going to try and end this stream. Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Alden. We will talk to you both again. Charlie will get you in the Imperial Senate. I'm still going. Imperial Senate guys on for Bad Batch to talk about one of the episodes. And Alden, if you're up for it, come on and represent Ahch-To as well for one of the episodes. If you're up for another 4-day stream with me whinging about how hungry I am when I have the power to end the stream, which I am going to do. I'm going to wield that power now. Goodbye, everybody. I'm clicking end broadcast. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.